Jessica Stortz, and I live in Iowa with my husband and 4 daughters, ages 13, 11, 8, and 3, and we've been homeschooling since 2014. My husband, Adam, is a web developer for a consulting company, and I used to be a teacher, but I now stay at home and have been home for about 8 years and been homeschooling for about 6.
My name is Beth Arledge. I'm married to my husband, Phil, for 18 years. Together we have 3 children. Our oldest daughter, Claire, is 11, and then we have 2 sons, Jude, who is 9, and Lincoln, who just turned 6. And we have been homeschooling for 7 years.
So we chose to homeschool, and I'm going to be completely honest. A lot of it was some of our friends were doing it back in Michigan, but I had felt the tugging at my heart because kindergarten was amazing, her teacher was amazing, but when we got to first grade, we started to have these issues with girls saying like, you have to wear this headband if you want to be in our club. And I totally expected that, having worked in the public schools, but not in first grade. So I just got to thinking, man, this is rough. Plus, every morning I'd wake up, my kids would rush out the door, and I really didn't get to see them much. And then we were in small groups at church and that, but there was never that connection. So one, I really wanted to have connection with our kids, and I really realized that I wanted to be able to pour into them and pour Christ into them and make them disciples. And I couldn't fully do that unless I was involved in every aspect of their life. It also has given us an opportunity to travel. This past fall, we were able to take a month-long vacation to go to 5 different countries in Europe. And that's something if my kids were in public school, we could have done, but it would have had been done during the summer months, which are very, very expensive. But since we were able to go in the off season, it was actually really affordable for our family to do. So we just love the interaction and being able to walk through every step of life with our kids and make them disciples of Christ.
I honestly never thought that I would be a homeschool mom. I went to school to be a teacher in the public school arena and taught there for 6 years, and then was teaching an elective class. I taught drafting at the high school level. Also went on to teach a couple college classes in interior design. But when core curriculum graduation requirements were heightened, the elective classes were seeing smaller enrollment. And so my position at the high school was cut to part-time right after my second was born. And so now I had 2 children needing childcare and a part-time salary. And so that just caused my husband and I to seek what would be best for our family in that season. And we chose that it would be best for me to stay home. Still hadn't decided yet what to do with schooling, but when a couple years later, when my oldest Claire was of age to start kindergarten, we sought to check out every option that was available to us. So we went to different private school open houses, and then we also went to the Great Homeschool Convention in Cincinnati that year. And what happened was I sat in a session with Susan Weisbauer. She's the author of The Well-Trained Mind. I had never heard of her before, but she was in the ballroom, so it had to be somebody important. So I sat in on her session, and she was talking about classical education. And I'd never heard of this philosophy before. I had been raised in a public school system. I had been trained to teach in a public school system. So my only frame of reference was the modern progressive education style. And so I was sitting in her session listening to her speak, and she was pointing out some of the shortcomings, which is no secret. Everybody knows that things are not perfect in the public school, but it's okay, it's pretty good, but we know that there's also shortcomings teaching to the test and things like that. So she was pointing these things out, but not just in a complaining spirit. She was offering solutions to these in the form of this different philosophy of education, classical, and giving some real concrete examples of how we might approach schooling differently. And she just captured my attention. I went and I bought her book. I started reading The Well-Trained Mind, and then I came home and talked to some other friends of mine who I knew had been homeschooling about it, and the classical conversations had just started that year prior in our area, so I talked to a couple of friends who had done that and was drawn in. So that was kind of sealed the deal. Once we learned about classical And I explored that pretty much in full. I knew that that was the way that we wanted to go.
So my top 3 benefits of homeschooling, and I mentioned some of them in my why, but my first is just the schedule flexibility. I make my schedule. So last summer, in order to go to Europe, we were able to do school over the summer, so that freed up time to take later. Several years back, I had a miscarriage in the fall, and then my mom died a week and a half later of a brain aneurysm. So you imagine it was really tough. So it was nice to be able to be flexible. I ended up sleeping in a lot of days. We were still able to get school done, but I love that flexibility in the schedule. The second thing I love is being able to take the time to process issues with my kids. So as you know, you're usually in a hurry and you're running out the door and the kids are starting to fight and you're like, we don't have time to deal with this, and you run out the door. But as homeschoolers, we have the time to foster those sibling relationships and really take the time to dive in and say, what did you say to your sister? And why did you say that? And what does the Bible tell us about that? So we're able to process those issues and help them grow. So I believe we are a tighter knit family because of that. The third benefit I really love about homeschooling is being able to tailor each child's education to them. We can get a lot more done in a shorter amount of time because it's one-on-one, and a lot of times my kids work at their own pace. But I love that my little ones are listening to what we're doing and learning. And for instance, with spelling, we went through several spelling curriculums before I found one that truly worked for my second kiddo. My first one just got spelling. She was a good speller. But my second one needed something a little bit more. So as things didn't work, we switched them. When we had a math curriculum that I didn't love, I was able to switch it. So we can spend more or less time on things as we need, and it's not just a set time no matter what happens. If we need to skip something completely, we can. So I love that flexibility in choosing curriculum.
The top 3 benefits that I have enjoyed as a homeschool family would be, I have no greater joy than knowing that my children walk with the Lord. That's straight from Scripture. I totally resonate with that. I love that we can choose a curriculum, that we can pursue education in a way that glorifies God, that I can take every opportunity to point my children to the truth, capital T, through everything that we're learning. So that's one. Number 2 is there's a preserving of childhood, I think, that we are afforded when we homeschool. As opposed to the rapid growing up of children who attend a public school. Quite honestly, I think that there's opportunity in our homes to preserve their childhood just a little bit longer when we keep them under our wing. And number 3 for me is definitely flexibility. I love that we can start our year after Labor Day and end our year well before Memorial Day. I love that we can take vacations when everybody else is in school. I love the flexibility that homeschooling affords us as a family to do what we want to do, to go on field trips whenever we want to go on vacations whenever we want to pick and choose our curriculum as we see fit. So those are my top 3.
The one piece of advice I have to offer a new homeschooler is, well, I might make it 2. Don't compare your journey to my journey, because I've been doing this for a lot longer than you, so your journey's not going to look like mine, and that's totally okay. We also have different kids, we have different husbands, we have different schedules, and we have different priorities, so your journey's not going to look like mine, so make it your own. And the second piece of advice would be to start with less. That was the best advice someone gave me, was like in kindergarten, just do handwriting, math, and reading, and that's it. The first year, you don't have to do a lot. Even if your kids are older, just start with the basics and just get that under control for the first couple of months, and then you can add in science or history or Latin or whatever you want to do there. The sky's the limit of a foreign language, but don't try to do it all at once. Just enjoy your kids, enjoy the time, start with less, because you can always add more later.
One piece of advice that I would give to a new homeschooling mom or someone who is just starting out on their homeschool journey is not to try and replicate school in your home. Homeschooling is meant to be different. It's meant to be more like restful learning, more like surrounded by the comfort of your home and less like being surrounded by fluorescent lights and concrete walls and an abundance of children all needing your attention. Although you will have children all needing your attention, you should value that there's more one-on-one time. You should embrace the idea of slow pace and restful learning and not try to pack in too much. You can almost lose the joy when you try and do too much fun stuff or too much activity. And so I would just encourage a new homeschool mom to just practice self-control, to limit yourself, and to avoid the school at home approach to homeschooling.